One of the worst things that happens to a business is that you bring on employees that never have and never will interact with a customer.
If that is possible to run a billion-dollar company with a one-man show, or even with two people like yourself.
Really, what I believe the foundation of this quote is really AI agents, having the ability to have technology actually act in the place of specific headcount. Every headcount that you bring on, over time, they're only going to be 50% as efficient as the last person that you brought onto the company.
What do you see happening in the next 5 years with AI?
AI agents becoming is like an army of employees for strategic employees internally.
How would you go about this? Welcome, listeners. I'm Seb Wichmann, your host of the DoGood Insider, where we dive deep into raw and meaningful conversations with visionary founders and CEOs who see beyond profits, elevating the lives of employees and vendors and the beautiful planet we call home. Today's guest, we are joined by Benjamin Art, the founder of Masset, a content enablement SaaS company that defies the typical growth model by staying intentionally small and nimble. Benjamin has built a thriving business with a 2-person team, prioritizing customer connection, operational efficiency, and game-changing marketing efforts. With a focus on maintaining profitability and avoiding unnecessary complexity, he has crafted an operational plan that thrives on innovation and practicality, all while utilizing AI and modern tools to streamline processes. Join us as we dive into how Benjamin navigates operational challenges, nurtures leadership, and fosters a strong company culture with a minimal team, offering invaluable insights for founders and leaders looking to achieve big success without the chaos of scaling headcount at all costs. So, Benjamin, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Well, I'm excited to be here.
So Benjamin, let's have some fun. The reason for me that I have been very keen to get you on the podcast is because of a message that I don't hear all that often. You know, in a world where scaling is the #1 priority for most companies, you have with Masset and your co-founder, who's the CTO of Masset, decided to stay intentionally small. In fact, you guys run a 2-man company, super successful, and please elaborate what that means for the listeners and viewers. I would love to understand the reason behind, but I would like to start with a quote by, a mentioning by Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, that has, I believe, mid last year, 2024, spoken about the possibility in the future to run a 1-man billion-dollar company, whether or not that's hype and marketing or whether or not that's reality. What's going on?
Great question. And I love the subject for the podcast. It's something I'm really passionate about. And honestly, I've spent my entire career in marketing. And one of the biggest things for me about having a small company is the idea that I don't like separation away from the customer. As I have seen companies scale and grow and become unicorns, I've been a part of IPOs and things of that nature. One of the worst things that happens to a business, in my opinion, is that you bring on employees that never have and never will interact with a customer. They'll never know what their pain points are. They'll never know how to serve them in the best way possible. And as you look at companies, you talk to other founders, every headcount that you bring on, over time, they're only going to be 50% as efficient as the last person that you brought onto the company. So for us, we really did believe in this quote from Sam Altman that using technology and using external resources, AI agents, things of this nature, there's a really cool opportunity not only to scale and be profitable, obviously, because you have less, burn, less headcount, less expenses. But I firmly believe that if you stay lean, you can actually better serve your customers. Now, you may not go after as large of a market, but I think the market that you do serve, you can serve them in a much better way the smaller that you are. So that's kind of the hierarchy overview of why I care about it. I want everyone in the company to be so close to the customer and to know them so well that everything that we do is perfectly aligned with the customer. And if you scale too much, I feel like you lose that. And that's just a special sauce that I don't feel like you have to give up.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Benjamin. There's so many juicy areas we could dive into, right? One of which, again, let's go back to Sam Altman here about the possibility and how you would go about it for our listeners that, think about that scale is all that counts. And a lot of times we measure ourselves almost by the amount of staff we have, which is such an odd measurement stick if you think about it, right? It has nothing to do with profitability or the health of the company. In fact, I would argue the opposite is probably, what's happening by looking at these metrics, how if that is possible to run $1 billion company with a one-man show, or even with two people like yourself focusing on the CMO, on the marketing side, and your partner, your co-founder focuses on the technology side. How would you go about this? You are big into AI, you are a SaaS company through and through. Let's just imagine that this is possible and Sam Altman is right, that's tomorrow or in the near or in distant future, that is something we would see, or we're going to see. How would you go about this? What are the possibilities? How do we do it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So to clarify from our current perspective, I think we're a ways off from the 2 or 1 person $1 billion company. I think that is a little ways out in the future. I think it's an aspirational quote, and I think there's a certain type of business that could probably pull that off. For me, I think the realistic ambition for us as a company is more like the 50 person $1 billion company, which is still a fraction of the size of any other $1 billion company out there. But really, what I believe the foundation of this quote was, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but the way that I interpret and understand how this is possible in the future is really AI agents having the ability to have technology actually act in the place of specific headcount. Now, I'm also a really big believer in outsourcing and fractional leadership, fractional work, contract work, freelance, things of that nature. The world is changing ever since people went fully remote and the high-tech layoffs. I know so many marketers who refuse to go work in-house anymore because they went in-house, they got laid off. They went in-house, they got laid off. They went in-house and got laid off. And then all of a sudden they said, forget it, I'm not going to do it. I'm really good at this one thing in my job. I'm just going to go and consult, or I'm just going to go freelance. And in a couple of months, some of these people are making double or triple their income, have their fate in their hands, live where they want to live, do what they want to do, and have that freedom. And for a business owner, I love that because I can go to these people who have figured out how to specialize in that one little thing that I need right now, maybe for the next 6 months. And I can go work with them. I don't have the headcount. I don't have any of the worries about that. They have their flexibility and freedom, and I can go get that specific need met from someone who has specialized in that one thing. And then I can move on to the next one, and you can have all of these wheels and things in motion. I think that there is this specialized economy of people who are going to hyper focus on doing very specific things. And there's going to be a massive market for people that go after those people, work with them for 6 months to 2 years. And then they're able to transition that headcount budget that they normally would have for headcount into new freelance external opportunities. And then again, the whole while leveraging AI to kind of take on the more menial, repetitive tasks that nobody wants to do anymore. And they can leverage these strategic external partners. So that's how I look at a lot of it. And that's kind of how I see the future of growing a business. And these individuals working on their own, they could be AI specialists, they could be marketers, they could be in finance. anywhere, anything that you do literally could be outsourced. And these individuals are entrepreneurs. They run their own little businesses. So rather than a lot of headcount in a single business, I think you're going to see this nebulous of there's a business that works with other businesses and they all solve each other's needs. And that's how it ultimately fulfills the needs of the customers way more efficiently than if you had a ton of headcount, but it does it in a very specialized manner. So that's kind of how I view the marketplace, especially, talking to a lot of people. That's kind of where they're going. That's where they want to be. They want that flexible, and freedom. And I think that's where the market's going to go.
Not a new, the landscape has shifted, probably, like like COVID-19 was probably the accelerator, but the world has always shifted towards this more independent kind of, let me take ownership again of my life type mentality of people that have an entrepreneurial spirit. They're not quite entrepreneurs. I can sing songs about that there's a huge difference between being a consultant and being an entrepreneur, for sure. But, we're all thinking alike. What happens, I've been an employee. I'm not sure if you have.
Absolutely.
It is a distinctly different mindset, even about value creation, about, client acquisition. It's about making money at large, right? I mean, I'm much more suited for the consulting gigs. I love that for various reasons I'm not going to go into right now. But what happens with all the employees in your world?
It's a great question. And I don't think this framework of businesses with a small amount of employees fits every industry, every business type. There's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't make sense to do that. I think in a really technological business, you can get away with it. You can do that. And a lot of what we do, we can work with people who have chosen to go external. So I think it just depends on the specifics of the industry, of the people, things of that nature. And believe me, like, I have this strong philosophy, but I'll be the first one to admit, down the road, if we have to have 250, 500 heads, we'll go there if that's what our customers need. Ultimately, that's totally fine. But I do think that there is some of the most talented people I know have refused to go back in-house. And I think that there's a lot of people that go in-house to get to a point where they've developed a specific set of skills. They've learned what they love to do. They are really successful at it. And then they reach that point where they decide, okay, the politics of internal businesses, or the idea that I, have to live in a specific area and potentially, commute to an office place, they're kind of over that. And it just depends on, your work and family and all that kind of stuff. And that makes a big difference. But it'll be interesting. I wish I had the magic, 8-ball crystal ball to be able to know where everyone's going to go, what they're going to do. I just do think there's going to be a huge amount of people that are out there offering their expertise with these tiny, small businesses that we're going to be able to work with some of the most talented people in the world without having to pay as much as a full-time headcount. And they're going to love it, and the business is going to love it, and everyone's going to profit from it. I think for a good percentage of what needs a business has, it's going to go in that direction. And I think there's going to be a lot of value there.
Yeah, I hear you on that. So what I'm hearing from you is that it depends on where a person is at, right? So if you are somebody that is not our viewership, we talk about entrepreneurs and CEOs in particular here, but it's a strategic conversation we want to have as a company owner to understand. Maybe it's a blend, right? Maybe it's an employee headcount, maybe it's a freelance headcount, but I think it's probably fair to say that we all need to understand where we belong as a company and what strategic pathways we want to walk down to, right? Or toward to. Like for DoGood agency, for the company I run, probably because I have come from that stance of being a consultant. I love entrepreneurs. I love their level of innovation, how they contribute to companies. it's a totally different just dynamic working with freelancers than working with employees. And there are drawbacks to it. You suddenly have, maybe they are more expensive, question, right? Maybe they don't want to go full time. One major reason why I went as a consultant is because I wanted to spread my wings, and I love the idea of, having my little fingers in multiple paint buckets, if you will, and to really honestly de-risk also, and to keep me interested and stimulated, and just, I love the variety of tasks, right? So I do believe that the really good consultants that emerge right now, that they probably want to grow and want to try different things and want to challenge themselves. And it's kind of the split that you run between doing things that you are an SME and expert in, and doing something new also that stimulates you, right? But the question I have for you is, I can talk about, quite a few drawbacks, even this employee's mindset around, you are here for us 24/7, I was about to say, but you're here for us 8 hours a day, and you're on back and call. A consultant doesn't quite work that way. What are the challenges that you are being met with, that you have experienced, that comes with, running a pure consulting freelance strategic company, if you will, and how have you overcome those challenges?
It's a really good question. And a lot of it really just comes down to the kinds of people you work with, and the projects you need, the things of that nature. So what it all comes down to, I think originally where this philosophy and belief for me started was with my father. He ran a tech company years and years ago. And at this company, they had a really small team, and they achieved massive numbers for their company and revenue. And what they did is they split up the various responsibilities amongst the teammates. For example, the engineering team took on support, and they would have them trade off and specifically say, okay, you have this specific day for support and things of that nature. And what they found is every time someone called in with a support issue, they were so frustrated that they had to answer and take that phone call that person was in a position to go fix that problem, so they never had to take that phone call again. And what they did is they incentivized the team in such a way where every additional headcount took a little bit away from the pot of money that everyone was earning in bonuses and things of that nature. And so everyone had to take a hard look at the extra headcount that they wanted to bring into the business and say, is this important enough that it's going to take away from my bonus this year, and it's going to take away from some of my compensation, because there's only so much money that can be generated. And is this job important enough? And it allowed the entire team to make these collective decisions of who they should hire, why they should hire them. Is it important enough? And they all, really money talks. And for people, a lot of times they're like, well, I want this head count. And sometimes it's purely because they just want extra heads. They want their life to be a little bit easier, but honestly, it's probably not that necessary. And if their compensation were to go down for it, they probably wouldn't make that decision. There are some really good leaders that I've seen and been a part of where they're the exact opposite, though, where they say, you can take a part of this out of my own income. This is how important we need this role. And I think that's great. So for me, I wouldn't say the overarching philosophy of this is stay small for the sake of staying small. I think the concept is really think extra hard about the heads that you are going to bring on. And if you're going to bring someone on that has a passion for your product and for your customer, and there's a little enough headcount that they can stay connected to the customer throughout the duration of their time at that business, that's an internal hire, 100%. If there's a specific task or a project that needs to be done, or an expertise that isn't had inside the business, that you can put on a timeline of under 2 years of the necessary work for that specific project task, whatever it may be, a system that needs to be built so you can automate something, that's where I look at freelance, where you can have their goal be accomplishing a specific project. In-house, needs to be motivated for the overall success of the customer. That's how I delineate the two different areas. So for example, if you're building a brand new product or a brand new feature into your product, and it requires a expert mathematician, for example, great. You may be able to get away with a freelancer that can help you build out a portion of that product, train up your team and have them understand that and maintain it. And it may take a year contract. That's great. But if you need someone in-house that is entirely responsible for customer success, who gets to make the decisions of what's best for this customer, and all I care about is our customers are as happy as possible, that is like the better in-house person. So that's kind of how I look at it to kind of get the benefit. And ultimately, does this role, just to like overly repeat myself for the 100th time, does this role really care about the success of the customer, or does this role care about the success or the completion of a project? And that's when you know in-house or out of house. And I think that a lot of the times we confuse those. And the answer a lot more often is outsource it, because it really is just a project, as opposed to this person will live and breathe everything the customer needs.
Right. Or hiring a consultant, freelancers that is more of a full-time staff, right?
Fractional. Absolutely. 100%.
Right. So you run Masset on a two-man kind of operational strategic headcount. You must work with freelancers. You don't have employees. What are some of the challenges that you have overcome and that you see just working with freelancers?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, their motivation and their lack of information. I, in my career, started out on the agency side of things. So I've been in that position where I was working with businesses and I wasn't in-house and I didn't have access to the metrics. I didn't have access to see what happened after I handed off that project or a task to the business. And often that can lead to misalignment, and that can be difficult because you're kind of at arm's length, and they're never going to open up all their data and their books to you unless maybe you are fractional and more of a full-time consultant kind of an idea. So I think the number one is a lack of communication. You need to overemphasize, communicate, help people understand what they're trying to accomplish, or else they're only going to be able to produce subpar work. It doesn't matter how talented they are or how specialized they are in something. If you can't paint the picture of what your customer needs and what you're trying to accomplish, it's going to be really hard for that person. So the downfalls of freelance is every single time you work with someone new, you kind of have to go through the whole rigorous process of explaining what you do, why you do it, what's different, what's the competitive landscape, what does the customer need. You have to go through that whole process, and you have to be pretty succinct at being able to explain it before someone can get up and running to the point. Just because they're freelance doesn't mean they can have immediate ramp up. Every freelancer has ramp, just like an employee. Employees, though, that ramp happens once. Freelancers, it's every single time you swap a freelancer. And so that's kind of the downside is you have to be prepared that people can't start producing for you from day one.
Yeah. If a founder and CEO is right now thinking about to increase the headcounts, regarding freelancers, again, I do believe that their companies more, this is already quite far down the road that we as a company have, thought about, how we best distribute almost like the workload to what type of person that is, freelancer, consultant. I still get confused which is what, so to speak. I think to me, they're all the same. I don't like the word freelancer per se. I love being a consultant. I'm not sure you see that, but it's just an ego thing, right? Now, we talked about the kind of the distribution that you believe, who is more prone to be an employee, like from a mindset perspective, but also internally. We spoke about customer success and the kind of like the proximity to the customer being probably the major decision maker, whether or not that person needs to be in-house or not, versus consultant. But I want to throw this AI piece into the mix. So if a company founder and CEO right now is thinking about to almost like maybe deleverage, de-risk, I don't even know if that's a thing, let's throw AI in the mix. So I would love you to look at this dichotomy between these three pillars, if you will, right? What do you see happening in the next 5 years with AI in terms of how far can we push the automation, the AI agent type scenario, replacing full-time staff, freelancers, versus who is an employee versus who is a consultant?
Yeah, I love it. So for me, I don't see very many jobs being taken from people from AI agents. And what I do see AI agents becoming is like an army of employees for strategic employees internally. So the people who truly know how to use AI agents are suddenly going to be able to do so much more with so much less. They're going to be
Like what?
fully
Give
enabled.
me.
Yeah, so
What
for
are some
specific examples, right?
Let's go into detail.
If you're looking at a content writer, for example, and in the past you had a whole bunch of these content writers, I don't know if the content writing headcount in a business may go down really that much, but you're going to see these content writers be able to go out there and have AI. I mean, I have daily updates from ChatGPT telling me about everything going on in the world of AI. So it's giving me these news articles, all that fun stuff. And so suddenly it's doing all my research. AI just announced, or ChatGPT just announced this deep research that it can be done in less than 30 minutes. It can do the kind of research that an analyst can do and like the quality of information. So the ability to go out there and I think one of the things that people often look at with AI is they say AI is going to make us infinitely more efficient. And like a lot of people kind of stop there. I think AI in its real power is actually to enable us to be way better at what we do. There is a component of efficiency. That's important. I love that. But these agents, I think they're going to just make us these rock stars of people and doing our work. And I think that with small businesses, it's a matter of really prioritizing on a few simple things and doing them well. But you can use an AI agent to say, help me become a better writer. Here's what I want to write. Here's what the thoughts I want to get out. Here are even my personal stories and the experiences and the customer data. And here's a podcast interview that we even had. And here's the whole transcript. Help me find the right storyline. Help me find a succinct way of doing this. Or, hey, look at this paragraph that I wrote. Help me fix that. Make it sound better. Let's throw an alliteration right here. What could I do with that to make this flow? And suddenly the quality can go way up. And there are going to be businesses that use AI agents to go out there and create endless amounts of subpar content and subpar work. I think the businesses that are going to see the wins, they're going to have these employees that own a portion of their business and can use AI to do it so well that you won't have to expand the headcount because they're so enabled and so good at it and have these capabilities that these agents, again, it's kind of, that's a terrible analogy because I just came up with it on the spot, but like an Iron Man suit, essentially, it's still a person in there, but they're unlocking the ability to do things they never dreamt of doing in the past. And I think that is where the AI agent movement's going to happen. It's going to be those extensions into our skill sets to say, okay, I suck at research. And now I have 5 research assistants for me all the time, and I may be really good at writing, but it still can make me slightly better. And you have an SEO agent saying, here's how we're going to optimize for this post. And you have a LinkedIn agent saying, hey, I actually read 10,000 LinkedIn messages from your competitors, and here's how we should post this content, or whatever it may be. And so these people are just going to be able to be unlocked in that kind of way, as opposed to just trying to create 10x the amount of work. And I think, something that's 10x better versus 10x the quantity is going to go 100x further when it comes to growing and sustaining and building a business.
So this augmentation of human potential, almost, that we become just the super agents by having assistance
Absolutely.
via AI. You know what I'm just thinking about? To me, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, DoGood as a company, we are all into culture, into how do we build high-performing teams, into how do we shape truly extraordinary relationships. What I believe, and maybe I'm a little biased here, but AI is not really an enabler for humanity to come closer to each other, to build relationships, to be in close proximity, to trust each other. It kind of, in my book, AI kind of distance ourselves from real conversations, from real relationships. So the point I want to make is that I agree with you that AI, from the efficiency and from I love that this augmentation of human potential that you just talked about, which are just my words to probably describe probably worse than what you did much better. But it doesn't help with the relationship building exercise. And business, whether or not it's partnerships, whether or not it is sales, to me is all about trust. It's all about authenticity. It's all about creating a genuine need and value and communicating that effectively, right? So the communication part, yes, may be done by AI, but what do you think about this whole notion and piece around that a business lives and thrives on relationships with the end customer, B2B, B2C, partnerships? What are your thoughts on kind of how does AI replace that or not?
Yeah, I love it. I do agree that technology always has an opportunity to separate us as individuals. And I think that's really important. At the same time, I heard someone talking about it and it was like beautiful, and it has forever stuck with me. If you're an individual, and we all have stories to tell. I love, the business that I run is about content marketing. I feel like everything in business is about the content you produce, and that builds trust. Do you understand me as an audience? Can you talk to my pain points? Have you been in my shoes? And how you can portray that across all the different mediums and platforms, the more likely you are to engage and build a relationship with a customer. But there are people like myself that when I first went into college, I wanted to work for Pixar. I wanted to go out there, and I went to a school that had a great program. And then I found out you have to be able to draw. And I do not have that skill set. My wife is amazing at art. I'm more of a written word kind of a person. And someone was talking about it. This person like me who can write, I can use AI to help me get my story out in a visual way that I never had the capability of doing before. And so when we talk about this connection, I now have this ability to get this image out of my head, the ability to tell my story to someone to get to the raw, deep understanding of who I am and what I care about. AI can help me tell that story and connect with people in a whole new way because of my lack of ability to tell my story. And that's for a lot of other people, they are visually, but man, when it comes pen to paper, they just seem to lose it. They can't do it. Or the written word versus the spoken word. There are people that are never going to be comfortable in front of a camera, but they can write, and AI can give that person a literal voice to tell their story on a format and a medium that they couldn't participate in before. So if you're using it to replace your story and have AI tell its story, which isn't really a story, it doesn't have those experiences, it's going to distance, it's going to destroy culture, it's going to destroy trust, it's not going to build a business. But if you use AI to tell your story and enhance and make up for the lack of your ability to be able to do so, I think it's going to be a beautiful thing. And I think people are going to unlock things like never before. I have always loved the idea of doing a children's book. I now through AI feel like maybe on the artistic side, I could accomplish that because now I have that ability, or at least I could get my thoughts onto an image and work with someone who has that ability. Before, it was almost impossible to describe this vision in my head, and now I can do it. So that's my real belief is, and that's why for me personally, when it comes to AI, I never just ask AI to write something or do something all on its own. It always has to have a source. That is the differentiator. Good content from AI, good, meaningful AI has an authentic human point of view, a source, a story, and AI augments that to tell it in different ways, shapes, or forms. If you have AI tell its story, you'll never connect with someone. So I didn't mean to push against your understanding and the beliefs, and I see it your way.
Point. No,
but that's kind of how I view how AI can enhance connection and the ability for us to come closer to one another and build relationships rather than push us apart.
Amazing. Let's pivot a little bit here. You spoke in the beginning about that you kept Masset, the enablement platform Masset, intentionally small with the two main team right now. Obviously, you have peripheral staff and freelancers and consultants you work with. And you spoke about the importance that you highlighted clearly around you having done so deliberately because you wanted to be close to the end consumer. And for you, proximity to the crux of things, being the buyer, being the purchaser, is so important to you. What led to your decisions? What are the drawbacks? What are the pros having made that decision?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the big pro is the amount of time that me and my co-founder can spend with our customers is off the charts. We can do it because there is no degree of separation. If someone has questions or concerns or product feedback or anything of that nature, it goes directly to an individual that can impact change within a matter of seconds, days, a week. I can't tell you the amount of times that a customer has said, Ben, this one feature needs to be better. My life would be so much better if you could do that. 3 days later, guess what? It works and it's fixed and it works that way. That is the innovation of being able to be close to the customer. Now, on the flip side, more headcount means more things, jobs to be done that can be done, right? It's just there is, even though people are less efficient as you continue to grow because they're distance from the customer and their distance from the ultimate decision-making ability, every employee does something. They get a job done and they accomplish something and they bring their own passion and perspective. I would say the number one downfall for a small business is a diversity of thought internally. And you supplement that through talking to your customers, but having people from different backgrounds and experiences and upbringings and raised in different places with different interests and see the world and feel it and look at it in different ways, shapes, and forms, there's a lot of power there to sit down in a meeting and have someone look at life and never seen it the same way as you and call you out and say, hey, you're doing this completely wrong, and being able to listen to that and be able to hear that opinion. That's one of the coolest things about having an internal team. And so, obviously that is the pro and con, but there's I think no matter what, and I wish life had like a perfect answer for this is the perfect way of running a business. I think it's just the nature of your customers, the nature of your product, the nature of who you are and as a business. And I think that that's ultimately what it comes down to, is that people have to make the right decisions for their customers. And for us at this stage of the business, we're at a point where the ability to quickly innovate and respond to our customers' needs is the number one priority. At some point in time, we do want those different mindsets and different people to push and, have those agreeable disagreements internally and to fight about things because they see the world differently. And I'm a firm believer that makes a business 10 times better. And so for me, there's pros and cons to everything, and there's always a trade-off, less employees, closer to the customer, but less that you can get done. So we have to prioritize on just a handful of things and be really good at it. And there are things that we say no to all the time. And if you have more people, you can say yes to more opportunities. So that's kind of the trade-off in my mind.
Benjamin, thank you so much for your time. That has been, to me, an amazing conversation. And I say that because, again, talking about a topic that is kind of almost polarizing and goes against the grain of, people, us, and I include myself in this, a little while ago, trying to build companies to boast with our headcounts sounds almost ridiculous. So I really want to thank you for opening my eyes what's possible. And I really loved, numerous points of the conversation around this dichotomy or this relationship between, AI and purposefully not putting AI to the top with AI consultants and employees, and you giving us an understanding around not just a journey as an employee to become a consultant, but also which part is appropriate, right? And this piece around augmentation, that you believe in kind of AI assisting human potential to just explore even more and to become this superhuman, if you will, that, we talked about storytelling and if you're not the greatest storyteller, for example, that's AI is an amazing tool for people to communicate their value to the world in a moment where they would have never been able to do so, right? So amazing. Thank you so much for your time. As a last word from you to, again, co-founders, founders that run sizable companies, we all struggle. A lot of us struggle with maybe the proximity to our end consumer, B2B or B2C. What would your advice be for maybe downsizing through AI, through consultants, to kind of alleviate those pain points that come with having so many people that be employed?
Cool. And I don't know if I would say downsize rather than, maybe, just thinking twice about your next headcount, because, I think every business should operate efficiently and try to minimize the potential for downsizing and putting people in a difficult position. But I would look at one simple exercise. If you were to have a company hierarchy chart and you mapped out how many, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, have you ever heard of that game? How many connections you're away from all that stuff. Look at that as the degrees of disconnect from your customer. So if you mapped out every single role, how many degrees away from them actually having regular conversations with a customer are there? And the number one thing is, how can you reduce that? Can you have them more involved with the customer? Can you get them on more calls or more interviews or more events? Or when you're looking at a new headcount, is this person 5 steps removed from a customer? Do you really think that someone coming into your business for that particular role is going to efficiently be able to accomplish their tasks with the customer's best interest in mind if they are that far removed from the customer? So that would just be kind of the litmus test that I would always ask myself before ever considering a person that's headcount. Because honestly, if they're that far away, they're probably just accomplishing tasks that can be done externally on a short-term or a long-term basis to build some kind of repeatable process or operation. And I'm sure this answer is way too long, but just see how far away from the customer you really are. And that's how I would kind of look at it.
Benjamin, the words of wisdom from Benjamin, thank you so much and have an amazing day.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.